Hello and welcome to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, presented by Coors Light. Go from full time to game time. Coors Light, made to chill. Make sure you find the Raptor Show wherever you listen to podcasts, and please rate and review the show, despite the team being so uninspiring. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined for the first segment by my two fellow co-hosts, Blake Murphy and Alex Wong. Alex, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Just want to let everyone know, thanks for your kind messages this weekend. For people who saw that my 2001 Honda Civic might have reached its end.
Yeah, tell us about that. What happened?
Yeah, it's just, smoke started coming out from all corners of the car as I was on the highway on Saturday. Thankfully, I was safe. Everything's good. Oh, I'm Will Lou. Yeah, the car's been towed to Markham now. My dad's trying to resuscitate it, so it's not over yet. But I just want to quickly shout out the Zito's family. Had a chance to see them today because the car shop was just 5 minutes away. Shouts to Olga for the wonderful sandwich, Alexandro, Angelo, and everybody. Yeah, that's it.
I have follow-up questions on your...
on my car?
Sorry, whose name are you not sure? Alessandro?
Alessandro, Ali the Kid.
How long have you had the Civic?
This is my high school car.
Oh, so you've had it since
I've actually had it, yeah. So technically it's a 2002 Honda Civic. I realized when I finally looked at the car manual on Saturday, but we've been
better like 01.
Yeah, we've been calling it the 01 Civic, so we're going with that. This was my first car ever, like my first car in high school after I failed my G1 3 times and then finally got my G1.
Oh, God. What? You failed the G1
No,
times.
the G1 or G2. No, not the written test, the driving one.
Oh, it's G2.
Okay, so I failed my G2 3 times, I think. 2 or 3 times. But anyways, I broke up with the Civic for a little bit because I got a Nissan Altima when I think I came out of school. But I just missed my Civic, so I claimed it back. So on and off, we've been together for like 2 decades.
So
it's really the longest relationship in your life.
Shut up, man. Straight up, just shut up.
Man. I don't know how to steer it back after that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It's funny you switched for an Altima. I had a 95 Altima as my first car. I bought it in grade 12. With all my African Line Safari and home hardware money. So if this was
worked on the African Line Safari?
Yeah, I have had every job you
African
could possibly
Lion
have.
Safari.
Really?
Yeah, I have had.
What was your job?
That place, I was on like the kitchen side, so they have like a food court there.
Yeah.
But I would work like outside, basically like barbecuing.
Wow,
And like
this guy was a grill
so when
master.
staff wanted like a staff meal or whatever, you come out to my little area, and then like my area is kind of like the unofficial parents need a break. Two parents and 3 kids went, and like, okay, dad's gonna take a little break for a bit, and then mom will tag out.
6 glizzies coming up.
Yeah, and I was just there like manning the barbecue. It was great. It was.
There's different depths. There's things that add character to it.
Yeah. Ethically, I don't know about the African Lion Safari generally, but like as a summer job, it was fine, and I lived like a 10-minute drive.
Yeah, so,
there,
Okay.
for Nat Bhatia or anybody else in the car business watching, hit me up.
You're a free agent? All right.
Free agent.
02 Alex, 02 Civic, like I'm trying to put myself in like what burnt CDs were you playing first in? Like Nas, The Lost Tapes is probably like the first thing you burnt and
a lot
played
of
in there?
G-Unit, lot of G-Unit mixtapes.
Nice.
And then you make your own CDs, obviously.
course.
You gotta end every CD with either an Usher or a Donnell Jones. Just a little slow jams at the end.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was the steez back then.
Oh, that's crazy.
Raptors talk coming up. Yeah.
The Raptors talk
So what were the Raptors doing in 02? Probably better than they're doing
Well,
now.
the Raptors were, and we'll get to it. Raptors with a very disappointing loss on Friday, but thankfully Shohei Ohtani almost came here and then did it. So that's good news, right, guys?
Yeah, so your weekend was spent attending to the potential, death of your car, which, by the way, LeBron is still in his prime, coming into the league at 03, but your 02 Honda Civic is now just officially done. LeBron is literally longer running now.
You don't understand, brother.
Than your car.
I was literally waiting for the CAA truck to come and trying to stream the in-season tournament final on my phone. Anyways, yes.
That's how you spend your weekend.
Yes.
Blake, how did you spend your weekend? Because obviously everyone who listened to the show last week.
I have one more note on that.
Go ahead.
The Raptors have had 7 head coaches in the time that Alex has had that car.
Who was the coach in 02? Lenny Wilkins?
Lenny
still?
Wilkins, yeah. That
Kevin
was,
O'Neal?
The last first Vince year. The
Kevin-
last full good Vince year.
So Lenny, Kevin O'Neal. Oh my God. Sam Mitchell?
Yeah.
Yep.
Jay Triano?
Yeah.
Dwayne Casey?
Yeah.
Nick and Pizza Man?
Yeah. There
we go.
Darko? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
so this is how you spent your weekend. Blake, I know you have been diligently on call, literally on call.
Have you showered?
Yeah. We have a gym here, and I have showers at home.
Okay. That's the only question I have. Will, what you got for Blake?
How was your weekend? Because obviously the Shohei news broke over the weekend.
Yeah. So Friday there was some reporting, some expectation that maybe something was imminent. So I ended up sticking around here. I had to do Raptors pregame.
We all ended up sticking around.
Friday.
Here's the thing. I've never seen this many people in the office at once.
Suckers.
Yeah. And then I did Alish and Justin's show.
Yep.
And then I ended up just watching the Raptors game here because I was writing off of it anyway. I was like, I may as well. But yeah, Saturday the news came and I was like in the middle of a workout and didn't know if we were going radio only or TV. But I just like threw on a hoodie and like got here in I think I got here in like 12 minutes. I did not look TV ready, so thankfully we only did radio and podcast side.
I did hear your segment because I was driving, hopping in the car. It was a great show.
Yeah, we did like 2 hours. Me and
you
Jeff
had someone
Blair.
from LA.
Yeah, so Jeff Blair and I did it, and then we had Shy, we had BNS, we had Bill Shaken from.
I love when you
side.
call him BNS. That's such a sick nickname.
What you know? Smith.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to spend that many syllables.
BNS is a sick nickname, though, man.
Also, like everyone who works here, other than the three of us, is named Ben, so it's helpful if you can specify.
Diversity and inclusion.
Sportsnet 590 the Ben.
Yeah. Anyway, it's obviously look, the parallels to the Kawhi situation are pretty extreme, right? Like if you look at this and you can walk away thinking you didn't get the guy, but you controlled pretty much everything you could control. Hey, we got the new player facilities in Dunedin that are top of the league. We got the renovations going on at Rogers Center that are top of the league. We came correct roughly based on Ben Nicholson-Smith's reporting that the Jays were pretty close to that number financially. What can't you control? Well, can't control if he wants to live in LA. Can't control if he wants to be on the West Coast because that fits better with fans in Japan.
We talking Kawhi? Oh, we're talking Shohei. Okay.
This is what I'm saying though. The parallels are very similar where the Raptors won a championship, kept him healthy, offered the max, did everything except like make Dennis the owner of MLSE or whatever it was he was asking for. So yeah, the Jays didn't control quite as much because if you were coming off of a World Series with a strong farm system and stuff like that, it's a better pitch. But yeah, at the end of the day, he wanted to be in LA, and $700 million is $700 million.
Yeah,
it's disappointing. It's going to be a tough one to bounce back.
It's crushing.
I'm not overstating this by saying that it would have literally been a life-changing decision for you personally.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would change the dynamic of the show after the trade deadline, probably once the Raptors have officially white flagged it and.
One segment.
I don't know what the plan. Like at some point, I'm going to go back and do Jays Talk Plus, like I did the last 2 summers. Timing TBD, but yeah, it would have probably been all hands on deck from day one.
Yeah,
this is there's also an element of you become a much bigger national priority in the United States. So there are more eyeballs, there are more listeners, there are more. Requests or whatever. I mean, you guys went through it with the championship run with the Raptors, right? Like it changes the dynamic of, even if your day-to-day doesn't change, your place in the kind of national narrative changes a little bit. So it would have been cool. It would have been a lot of fun. Jays have to turn the page here. Ben Nicholson-Smith and I are doing a Jays Talk Plus podcast tomorrow to go through some kind of, Shohei was plan A, Soto was maybe plan B, and he's gone now too. So we're like, you got to add up like plan C, D, E, F, G together and hope that you can get something there. It's going to be a depressing podcast, but that's coming later in the week.
Plan A is Michael A. Taylor, my brother.
As Drake once said, AB, I got your CD, you got an E for effort.
As Drake once said, if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. That theory's brilliant. I think from a fan perspective too, I know, Blake, you were asking us on Friday, like, how it would feel for us specifically to like for Shohei to come here. Just for Toronto fans, man, like I think anytime this happens, and the same thing happened when Kawhi decided not to stay here, is that Toronto fans have to spend the next like 48 hours to 48 months like reconciling with all their own insecurities and like reconciling with the fact that, hey, another athlete decided not to come to Toronto, reconciling with the fact that there's like certain media members who view it as a positive that Shohei Ohtani didn't end up in the 3rd largest market in North America here in Toronto. So it's just like reconciling with a lot of those things because like sometimes I think it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. People just expect the worst, and then when the worst happens, you can't help but just like have to deal with these things.
Yeah, and it's also tough because, like, you know, on the Raptors side, obviously the championship changed some things, and some guys stayed. DeMar and Kyle stayed. Serge stayed. You know, Pascal stayed. I know people don't care as much about those guys as, like, did Kawhi stay? Did Vince stay? Did Chris Bosh stay? But there's also a weird thing where, like, the Raptors have certainly, and look, last year and this year maybe less so, but as, you know, compare it to 2012 or whatever, you know, their place in the NBA is much higher and better respected and things like that. The Raptors have only been a cap space team once in the last decade. So we actually haven't seen yet if you can do anything with that in free agency.
Oh, we pulled Damari Carroll.
Yeah, that's the only year they had cap space. That's because the new TV deal came in and everyone had cap space.
Right, we pulled Hito too. That's right.
And then on the Jays side, like, those things can come in and they haven't gotten like the A1 free agents, but like Kevin Gausman, George Springer, like Hyunjin Ryu was a really big deal when that happened because the Jays weren't established at all yet. Right. That was just can we get a guy to believe in Vlad and Bo and where we're building when Ryu came. So the Jays have done some things. It's just like the drop off this year from Shohei to everyone else is so significant that it's going to be, you know, even if they're a better team on opening day this year than they were last year, it's not going to feel the same as Shohei. And to Alex's point, you know, that could be a tough thing for fans to come back from. That could be a tough, like, PR and sales thing to come back from as well. And to the, you know, a couple Jays fans have been like, well, are they even going to spend the money now? Maybe not $700 million, but those new premium suites are still there. They still got to be sold. The team's still got to be competitive. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess the bigger picture for me is just like, do you really need outsiders to validate your own, like, existence or your own worth, essentially? Because
after the Raptors won a championship, did you feel you needed ESPN and people like that to validate Toronto as a market and the 2 million people or whatever we had out at the parade?
No, I'm not judging that. I thought the moment was just a moment. It was exciting. I never during that parade did I think, is ESPN going to think about us? You know what I mean?
Right. That's what I'm getting at is like look at eyes at your own page. Like, I don't know, Don Draper it, right? Like, once you get to a certain point, who cares what other people think of you if you are secure in that? And the Jays obviously had that in the 90s when they were signing and trading for a whole bunch of stars to build around that core and win a second World Series. And that, you know, without the lockout, that would have maybe kept rolling a little bit there. There's no reason. And the Jays got there a little bit in 2015, 2016. There's no reason they can't get back to that the same way the Raptors got there.
It was always going to be crushing if you're going to finish runner-up to getting literally the once in a generation, possibly best baseball player ever. I think the toughest thing for Toronto fans is like, you think about like when you're like LA and like not the Dodgers, like you think about when you're the Lakers, like, you know, you strike out on, I don't know, man, like LaMarcus Aldridge, you know, Carmelo Anthony,
the Adam Levine, the reverse LaMarcus Aldridge jersey,
and then you get LeBron James. You strike out on Kawhi Leonard, but you already traded for Anthony Davis. It's like you can strike out on big free agents, but you know the next one's going to come through the door too. Whereas for a team like the Blue Jays and even the Raptors, if you want to apply it, you don't get those shots like every year, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we don't need to be like the best, otherwise we're not valid. You know what I mean?
I don't
like,
think it's a validation. I just wanted Ohtani so we could win.
And this is the other thing, right? Is like, if you are not the Dodgers or
Welcome
the Yankees,
to the Raptors
if you are not the Lakers or the Celtics,
you want
or
to talk
whatever,
Raptors Hornets? Like,
no. Please,
like,
Blake, go on.
It does put an imperative on you that like look at where the Raptors are right now versus where they were pre-Kawhi trade. And there are a lot of reasons for that gap. But what if they stopped doing well? Well, they've stopped hitting on draft picks and undrafted guys and turning, you know, third stringers into second stringers and second stringers into starters. That is the kind of thing that even if Dame had been available, KD had been available or whatever, you are no longer in a position where if you make a trade like that, you jump to title favorite or title contender the way you did with Kawhi. And I think if you're the Blue Jays, again, you can't walk away from this being like, well, we couldn't control anything, you know, LA is LA, et cetera. You can still do better at the like, hey, our farm system is not the worst in the AL East. And, you know, our team has won a playoff game in the last 7 years. So I do think you can't ever, you know, like you're just not going to be able to like New York and LA. That's something you can't make up, but you can do a better job of the things you can control. So if something happens, you're like, if Shohei comes around or Kawhi comes around, you are absolutely no question a title contender if that happens. And I don't know that was true with the Jays this year, the same way it was with the Raptors and Kawhi, where it was like, okay, you see the vision immediately.
Yeah. We're like, honestly, we're basically like 28 other markets. We're probably maybe one of the biggest out of those 28 other markets, but like you got to build it yourself.
Yeah.
No,
it's New York and LA, and then like market size wise, Toronto's right there with Chicago. And then
but nobody sees the thing. People don't actually care about this somehow. You know what I mean? Like they just don't.
And like it's a weird thing because like, we hear about, the national TV games for basketball all the time, right? Like Raptors fans track that for so long as a kind of point of validation or US relevancy. And it's true. The Canadian viewership doesn't count to the ratings in the US or whatever. The Jays have like the best viewership game to game in Major League Baseball. And you can make the case that, hey, the whole country thing that is very, very real for the Blue Jays in a way that maybe it wasn't for the Raptors because of the Grizzlies history and stuff until the championship years came around. You can make that case that from like a marketing and audience perspective that Toronto is really like the Canadian market when it comes to baseball.
Yeah, and people aren't even watching like traditional TV like that as I'm on a traditional TV platform. But it's like, they're streaming now. There's so many different ways to access it. So I do find I just find a lot of those arguments about like, Toronto, it's a good thing that, these athletes aren't in Toronto. They're just lazy arguments. You know what I mean? Like you can think of reasons why, like, Shohei Ohtani would be better in LA than Toronto, but those arguments feel really lazy to me and archaic.
I think the other big loss that I'm dealing with is I wear a Dodgers hat a lot, and I feel like people think I'm trolling if I wear it now.
Okay,
I wanted to ask you about this on Jays Talk Plus last year because
shows a Hideo Nomo, by the way.
I know you did the article about like, hey, when does sports gear transcend sports and just become like cultural gear?
I was focused on the Yankees. I was focused on the Yankees hat.
Like a Dodger, just the LA on a blue hat to me is like that's close to the Yankees.
That's iconic,
and I just wear it sometimes, and then people like get mad. It's like you're doing a Jays show, but you're wearing a Dodgers hat. I'm like, I'm not in a Jays jersey. I'm not on the team. I'm just wearing a hat.
This is the problem. It's like hats are just nice for their colors and
but
their
I
design.
feel like it's out now. I feel like if I wear a Dodgers hat this year, people will be mad.
My problem was I got like an Ichiro Seattle throwback last summer just before the Jays blew it in the wild card series, and I've had to put that on ice. I can't be rolling around Toronto. I can't roll around Toronto in a Seattle jersey.
I think you're fine now.
I think I'm fine now, but for the last, like right after the series, I couldn't be rolling around even if it was a throwback. You know what I mean, though? So
I think this is cultural, by the way.
So can I show up? Because I do have a Yankees hat. Can I show up in a Yankees hat on this program?
I think so.
Is that okay?
Also,
can you
definitely no.
Can you tell me when you show up in a Dodgers so then we can both take some heat together?
We will plan it.
Okay.
I don't
tomorrow. Yeah.
I think weirdly, even though the Yankees are in the Blue Jays division, the Yankees haven't been super successful the last little bit. So like you can get away with it a little bit.
I gotta check the standings to see what I could wear. Like
I don't know. I'm just talking about what people's reaction would be.
I reunited with my grade 8 homeroom teacher like 4 years ago. Like got her contact, had a really great conversation with her, posted this like real heartfelt post on Twitter about connecting with her because she inspired me to write and all this stuff.
That's beautiful.
But I was wearing a Yankees hat. So all the comments were like, yo, you a traitor. No, but that's how serious it is though. That's how serious it is. You wouldn't know because you don't put anything on your dome. You stay out of this. Big Head Coffee.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
seven more minutes and Michael Grange comes in and we would
enjoy the Big Head Coffee.
She sniffed it and said it was good.
Sweet.
She hasn't tried it yet.
All right.
Does she have coffee stuff at home? Like,
yeah.
Grinder?
She does. I think she thinks she looks at it as more like a souvenir type because it's got your branding on it.
Yeah.
So she just wanted to own it as like part of the show.
Yeah, like I don't know how many bags were in that box that Propeller
like
sent
6.
us. Yeah.
So
So only 6
Jacob,
of those
Propeller.
exist.
Oh, that's right.
For now.
Tell your mom it's dead stock.
Jacob,
Actually, not dead stock.
Jacob, can we get more? Let's figure this out.
Let's.
I'm enjoying
Do you need
all
any
the banter.
Jacob, do you need any parts from a 2001 Honda Civic? Can I
Do you need any Dodgers or Yankees hats we can't wear anymore?
Can I interest you in 4 winter tires, lightly used?
Oh, man.
Lightly used. You've had this car for 25 winters, and the tires are lightly used.
The car is actually immaculate. That's the thing. It's like no usage at all in this car.
It's the immaculate grid.
I guess though, like, because you lived in New York for a bit and have lived downtown, right? So you probably don't put much on that car.
The only thing he does is he drives to Markham to see his parents on weekends.
Yes, that's it.
That's the only
and to
thing.
see my nephews, and to see my nephews in North.
If I had one, was I would drive to Cambridge and Drumbo to see my nephews.
So I'm debating. I'm probably just gonna get a new car. Never mind. I was gonna say I was gonna use Zipcar downtown or whatever, but
Wow.
That's like taking the different bus.
Look, we'll just say this: there are some
Catch my man in a Comunado.
there are some car sales companies out there that should hit Alex up.
I'm a free agent. Yeah, my budget's $300 a month on a lease.
There you go.
I think you actually make that happen. All right.
Raptors lost on Friday. It was really, really bad.
I almost thought we were gonna make it through the first segment.
I feel like we got to talk like 5 minutes of Raptors in the first segment.
This is kind of like a silent protest, really.
Yeah,
we're just protesting the fact that they lost to the Hornets.
Raptors embarrassed themselves in Charlotte. Go ahead, guys.
Nobody wants this. Look,
okay, I've already given my thoughts on this. I've already ripped everybody.
I wrote about it. I listened to your. I don't usually listen to your post-game podcast because I don't want to like know everything you're going to say before we come in and do the show the next day. But Friday or Saturday morning, I did listen to it.
It was a must listen.
It was a must listen. And I don't know how I got a tweet today about like media hasn't been critical enough after what I wrote Friday and what you did on the podcast Friday.
Yeah, to sum up what Will said on the podcast, I basically said just stop watching the Raptors. They're not worth your time.
Turn the game on when it's on a Sportsnet channel, and so we get the ratings still.
Yes.
But then walk away.
Sportsnet has a lot of great NBA games on. I'm not even kidding.
It's true.
Yeah,
so,
it's true.
There's a couple good ones.
Look, they got down 16 early to a Charlotte team that without LaMelo Ball will probably, once we have enough games without LaMelo Ball, be a bottom 5 team in the league. And the Raptors got down 16 right away. Yep. They were coming off a bad loss to Miami. They were coming off of these talking points about pizza parties, et cetera, and looking at an opponent that really, look, no game there's not really must wins, but like vibes wise and let's prove something to ourselves wise, that game should have played out like the Detroit game when you really needed a win and you needed to just stomp on a bad team that is overmatched by you. And instead they got down by 16 immediately. Terry Rozier is like Mr. Crunch time against you. And for some reason you go like the entire offense in the comeback was, hey, attack whoever Terry Rozier is guarding, get Scotty switches onto Terry Rozier, and then they went away from it down the stretch. And then the last 2 possessions offensively, like first with 22 seconds left and 2 timeouts, they, coming off of a dead ball, don't use a timeout, which like, okay, if you're not going to use a timeout, you better have something going. Maybe you're going for a quick 2, so you want, and instead they chew up 14 seconds of clock, and then thankfully Scotty gets bailed out, fouled on his landing on the 3-point shot, and then the ATO down 3 at the buzzer was basically the Gary Trent play that we saw a couple weeks ago.
Against Cleveland?
Yeah, but it was Scotty, and then there was nothing to free him up. Like whether someone missed the ball, missed the read or whatever.
Darko's just a rookie coach, man.
It was just pin Scotty in the corner and ask him to, or I guess the wing corner and ask him to hit a pull-up 3. Also, I think his foot was on the line if it had dropped.
The foot was on the line, so literally would not have mattered. But I think my bigger gripe is with Darko after a game like that. And I know people are like, well, look, the roster's the issue. Listen, we've talked about the roster issues for 3 years. We changed the head coach, but what is the new head coach coming in to do? And I was listening to, because they canceled practice on Saturday, or they didn't hold practice on Saturday. They're like, all right, boys, like it is what it is. Let's come back on Sunday. All right. Okay, cool. They come back on Sunday, they go to practice, and of course afterwards there is the media scrum with Darko. Now I wasn't there for that for my own sanity, but I did hear it, especially on the way to work today. I just took a couple of notes because he was obviously asked a lot about the loss to the Charlotte Hornets. He mentioned a couple of things. Number one, Darko said that the Raptors heavily contested 76% of Charlotte's threes. That will be a top 5 rate.
That's getting 10% participation on your report card.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
He also said the Raptors basically beat them in every category except for making wide open threes.
Okay, wins and lessons.
Yeah,
okay.
That's
wins and lessons.
He also gave them credit. He said this group doesn't give up, and credits the fact that they did take the lead by 5 in the 4th quarter. Is that moving you?
I'm glad they didn't give up because I don't want to see what it's like when they actually give up.
Honestly, that makes it worse because that means not only did they get into a 16-point hole, they dug their way out of it and then couldn't close out against the Hornets.
Yep. Also, part of the reason why they couldn't close out against the Hornets, why did they put Yaka back in the game? They were running the pick and rolls with Scotty at center, getting the switches so Scotty can attack Rozier. That becomes a lot harder to do when you then put Yak in the game. But whatever. Let's move beyond that, okay? More of what his press conference said. He also mentioned the fact that, look, I know Charlotte didn't have LaMelo, But 2 years ago, Charlotte was a top offensive team. Is that moving you? 2 years ago, Charlotte Hornets under a different coach.
When they had LaMelo Ball, and hey, that was the year Jalen McDaniels was good. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Does this guy give Theo Melodone any credit, man? What's going on?
He also said, this is not like why the Raptors lost, but he did mention at one point that Terry Rozier kicked his leg out to draw a 3-point foul against Jakob. So they got to know how to play those scenarios better.
Okay.
That's not really moving me either. And then one of my favorite things, he said, on defense, we got to, every single time we're on defense, we got to have someone declare the ball.
Basic basketball.
Someone declare that they're covering the basket.
Basic basketball.
And then figure out where they're going to get to the weak side shooters.
Basic communication.
So basically, it's like if you and I were literally at our Tuesday run, we would be like, yo, I got the ball. And someone's like, I got your help.
Yeah.
This is the level of basic basketball that apparently they need to work on a little bit better.
And in transition defense, that's I have not played like a coached level of basketball, and that is straightforward.
Yeah.
In transition defense, someone yells ball. If you're the next man back,
Ball.
you fill to the paint.
Yeah.
And hey, if they kick it out to a wing shooter and someone else isn't back, whatever. But the paint is the 911. You put the first fire out first. Ball, paint.
Yep.
And then let everyone set up. And if you're
Ball.
and this is supposed to be, I think we talked about this last week with their slide and transition defense. This is supposed to be part of being a switchy, everyone's the same size, everyone can guard everywhere team that's supposed to make transition defense really easy because everyone except Yak can just grab whoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's supposed to be simplified.
I can't believe, and I'll let you go on, Will, on this, but it's I can't believe we're here already. We did this last year again. Last year, we reached a point where this team has lost its identity. We don't know what they are on both ends of the floor. And that's literally what I'm hearing right now.
Mm. Well, the last thing.
Oh, boy.
Darko also said, if we don't make 3 shots in a row, we got to have enough pride to get 3 stops in a row.
Okay. Three stops, and you get 3 stops in a row and we get pizza then? Should we lower this to 3 stops in a row?
You might get coffee.
They might pause
for 3
the game.
wins, you get pizza. For three stops, you might get a coffee.
Pizza dip.
Yeah, it's
Listen,
I don't know. It was not like why I listened to the press conference and I'm like, wow.
I know we're giving
I feel a lot better.
I know we're giving Darko a hard time, and I think he could be criticized as
when you drop a play to get a 3 to tie, and you inbound the ball 1 meter to a guy who then hits a 3 with the foot on the line. Yeah. I'm sorry. What do you call that other than coaching?
But this is the thing. We can independently criticize the coaching. Yeah. I still put it a lot on the players, but then I still put it on the front office. Again, it's just equal blame on everybody.
Yeah, look, I think the 3-point shooting issues is maybe something you can point to the front office, right? Like the roster construction doesn't fit the style of play you want to play, and certainly doesn't fit, and we'll talk to Grange about this, what you would want to optimize around Barnes and Siakam. And then from the coaching perspective, they haven't executed even given those constraints. And then from the player perspective, you have a team full of guys who said in preseason, I'm a top 5 defender at this. I should be all defense at that. They're 21st in defense over the last month.
Yeah. All right, so this is why we didn't talk Raptors Hornets for the majority of the first segment.
No, let's get Michael Grange in here, though.
What people want to talk about is what potential moves may happen. So we're going to take this quick break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, let's talk about the roster with Michael Grange. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Lou. Continuing joined by co-host Blake Murphy, and we are joined in studio by friend of the program, Michael Grange, our Sportsnet teammate. Grange, around this time when we get you on the show, we're typically going to ask you things that will get you aggregated. So are you ready for that? Are you ready to get aggregated? Is it annoying to get aggregated?
Not really. No? I mean,
okay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's part of the job. You're right. It's a casual flex. So latest reports out there from Shams, kind of reiterating what you have reported, what pretty much everyone kind of figures is that, Pascal, OG are names to watch for on the trade market. Seems like the Raptors are probably a little bit more partial to OG than Pascal. And then the list of teams for Pascal are like, Sacramento, Indiana, Atlanta. Atlanta's probably had the most definitive talks. Is that sort of where we are with everything?
It just feels like, you're just kind of pressing rewind, I feel like going back through my my files and going, maybe I'll just tweak this one and update it and paste it because, it's just a function of things carrying over from the trade deadline last year from the summer this year to now leading up to the trade deadline as December 15th rolls around. Things do kind of sort of heat up. I think I was talking to someone today, said there could be some stuff happening early, kind of before Christmas, league-wide, and then it'll probably, again, as always, kind of kicks over to like late January, early February. But, I think the one spin that is different, and the one thing, I've mentioned before and is the difference this time around is going to be the Raptors, if they haven't already, and I suspect they maybe have, or very close to, if they haven't already, picked a direction, picked a plan. They are going into it with one. So what last year was, I think in retrospect, what we all kind of saw was them just kind of, let's just see what's out there. We don't know if we want to sell our house. We don't know what neighborhood we want to buy a house in, but we're going to engage some agents and kind of go shopping around. So
okay.
But we're going to put a non-refundable deposit of a first-round pick down just to see and pick up Jakob Poeltl, just so we could tour the house and see what it might feel like.
And so, whereas I think this time around it'll be, but I mean, Blake, I don't think that was in contradiction to where they were at. I think that was the net outcome, the net sum of all that, if you want to call it research or market research, was like, this is our best path with where we are now.
It might not be contradictory. I mean, I disagreed with it at the time.
No. I'm not saying agree, disagree. My point is,
for sure.
How they arrived at that place was, I think, consistent with their method, which was, we're going to see what's the best opportunity out of this whole process. And I think this time around, it'll be reversed. It's like, I think they'll want a particular outcome and will work towards that particular outcome. And, and so I think it'd be a much more streamlined process. That's my sense.
So you used the term in your piece on Thursday, familiar crossroads, and it's like you come to a fork in the road and you stress about the decision, but you don't realize you're actually on a figure-8 track, and no matter which way you pick, you end up at the same spot again. That's kind of what it feels like here. And I guess, Grange, we could talk about some of what's ailing this team. You had a really good piece today about the three-point shooting issues and how that kind of magnifies, maybe the personnel doesn't yet fit the strategy they're playing with. You mentioned December 15th. For anyone who doesn't know, December 15th is the date that a lot of players who are not trade eligible yet become trade eligible. January 15th, everyone else becomes trade eligible. And somewhere in between there is the G League showcase where every GM in the league will be there kind of doing an unofficial GM's meeting. Grange, do you think anything can happen from where they are right now at 9-13, feeling the way they do, performing the way they are, and February 8th, where your read or your outlook on the situation would be fundamentally different at all?
No, I mean, I think if you don't know that this team isn't all that good now, I don't know what you're looking at. And like, that's in fairness to Darko, in fairness to everything he's tried to do. And, you look at the results, we've talked about three-point shooting, you and I last little bit, but, they had great process against Charlotte. Great process.
Oh, yeah.
But
Darko was very upbeat about the process.
But they were 6-32.
They got down 16 to a team that without LaMelo Ball would probably win 15 games. Awesome process.
But Blake, the Hornets were a top offensive team 2 years ago.
But they it's crazy. Like, there's only been 2 teams to shoot that badly this year. There's only been 6 games, I think, where a team has shot as badly as 6 or 32 or worse, and the Raptors have 2 of them in the last 3 games. You know what I mean? So I think. And I think going back to last year, like, it's, you can talk about process all you want. They are one of the teams that is most commonly going to have terrible shooting games. And that's, so any way you want to cut it. And I think, so if internally they're still waiting to, how is this going to work out? Or what if this just happens? Or what if we tweak this? I'd be stunned. I would be stunned. I just think that they see the same thing we see. And I think the real question is what is the best way to kind of get better the soonest or the most efficiently, and that's probably the debate that's going on now.
What's interesting is looking at Shams' piece and even just looking at the front office and sort of the way they moved. I think they actually do believe in Scottie, Pascal, OG. It's just a matter of who are you flanking around that, and it's a little awkward because it's like Dennis has been brought in here. Jakob has been brought in here. Those are the most significant acquisitions that they made. And I don't really think either of them are great fits with those 3 guys if you want to move forward. So it's strange because they get to a situation where now you have to maybe potentially move one of your core pieces who you really do like and adore because your other pieces aren't actually fitting around them.
And this is where, if we're Grange, if we're giving them the grace of like, yep, they were figuring it out and, they were going down this path and making the decisions that made sense to them at the time. If you gave me those three guys, that trio of forwards on paper, and I don't know, you didn't know their names, but you knew their skill sets and could see the numbers and their play and things like that, you would think, well, what is going to optimize these three guys? If we believe in these three as a core, what works around them? And I know that you can't just go out in free agency and get the exact skill set and exact player you want. But they did spend a first-round pick and a 4-year, $78 million contract on a guy who exacerbates spacing issues, even though he helps a lot in some of those lineups where Pascal or Scotty are on the bench. You need a pick-and-roll partner, but that hurts. And then you get a point guard who, if he's in a bench role or even like a super bench role where he's still playing 28 minutes a game, like that can make some sense. That trio has played 11 minutes this year without Yak and Dennis. They have not even gotten a chance to see what would that trio look like with spacing, with shooters around them, with even like, let's say, a rangier center in Precious who has had not a great year, but let's get a different look. Let's see Gary with that trio more instead of Gary coming in for Scotty when Scotty steps out. They just haven't taken a look at it. And I think that's probably my biggest frustration of the season is if you wanted to give it a little bit more time and evaluate it and find out what that trio can be, they have then kind of handcuffed what that trio can do based on who they brought in and what the lineups around them have looked like.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point. And, because, when they, as we all know, when they made the trade for Jakob, I think they were probably expecting to be able to keep Fred. So sure, Jakob, he's not the, a stretch five that maybe would fit with those talents you're talking about. But you had a point guard who was a good floor spreader. So, okay, we're getting closer.
Yeah, the natural pick and roll partner for Jakob.
But yeah, I think that's where, whatever you want to say about how Fred ended up leaving and why he wasn't traded and all those kinds of things has been hashed over a lot. That line of thinking of, adding Jakob, I mean, clearly I think they thought he would be it made more sense with Fred or a point guard who really can shoot. And so, yeah, no, to your point, Will, I mean, this front office has a ton of equity, as they should have a ton of equity. And we can, kind of go back, we're 10 years after that Rudy Gay trade, everyone knows. And you can kind of work through all the decisions that were made, some lucky, some I think really showed a lot of true foresight. But the last 3 years haven't been good. Like there's just been not many wins. And, and I think to be a really good NBA team, like you either have to have sort of elite talent, guys who just lift games, quarters, programs, whatever you want to call it, surrounded by enough guys who don't screw it up, or the other way to do it is be really good and really deep. And, you're probably a bit of a ceiling on those teams in terms of winning at the end. But, we've seen it. You can have really good regular seasons. This team has neither. And the path to solving either of those problems, it just isn't evident. Like that's what's, I think, frustrating is even if you are, or let's presume they are going to go down this path, I'd be surprised they trade both Pascal and OG. I think if they were going to trade one, I think it makes Pascal. Pascal's the one that makes sense for all kinds of reasons. But, what exactly are you getting and where does it take you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
In terms of you kind of go through all these kind of fake trades and you're like, how many of them really move the needle? How many of them really affect you in terms of either the draft capital you're going to get or the on-floor production you're going to get replacing a really good player who you was born and raised in the organization? And I think that's what we're all waiting to see is I do think that they're kind of in a, I don't want to say, they kind of paint themselves in a corner a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's going to take more than one move and maybe more than one chunk of time to get back to kind of even, I guess.
Even in a potential Pascal trade, for example, first off, you'd be giving up your best scorer. And obviously someone you've developed and grown. Someone who's willing to re-sign in Toronto too. But if you do decide to move off of him because you don't think it's a great fit, ideally you're looking to get some guards back, maybe 3 or 4 guards, maybe even 3 or 4 prospects. Maybe they don't have to all be guards, but to fill out your rotation, because it feels like the end of the bench is still very, very shaky too. So it's like you want to not only balance out your roster, but you also want to restock the depth of your roster. And of course, if you're trading away an all-star, are you getting back anybody that has a strong chance of becoming an all-star? Is there any guarantee that they're going to be a good starter for a good winning team in the future? And I don't know, Grange, if you've heard some names or if you've seen some of the names that have been tossed out there, are any of those guys standing out to you from Indiana, from Atlanta? I know this guy's going to be a starter long term. I know this guy's going to be an all-star long term.
I mean, not really, right? Like, okay. I mean, you look at Atlanta, and like DeAndre Hunter keeps getting mentioned all the time.
Okay, yeah.
Nice player, probably a starter on a good team. Can he stay healthy? Blah blah blah. But at this point, nobody's thinking DeAndre Hunter's on his path to, like, he's an unrealized star.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
And and so you look at Atlanta. So we've heard all these names: Hunter, Buffkin. Could be an interesting player. Like a few years ago, no one was all excited about Tyrese Maxey. Not that I don't think he was ever available, honestly. But
yeah, please tell me
there are these guys who we don't know. We'll see. They seem to like him in the draft process.
Yeah.
AJ Griffin is an interesting young player, not in the rotation. Obviously, the Raptors would have all kinds of insight there, more than probably anyone else in the league, just because of his dad. So that's a little bit, maybe. Then you flip it to Indiana, and again, like I think, I'm sure they would love to give Andrew Nembhard in that deal. I think Andrew Nembhard's going to be a really good player.
Yep.
But I don't
think he's a starting point guard in the league eventually.
And he's always blocked
because I wouldn't even go that far. Like maybe he'll be a starting point guard. He's a good player.
Okay.
Let's not get too crazy. Like he's, that's no disrespect. Like if you're, I think he's going to be in the league for a long time. That's a big deal. Ben Mathurin. I mean, you can see upside there.
Yeah.
Interesting player.
But
I mean, if he's a guy, if you told me 3 years ago he was kind of some version of what he is now, I wouldn't be all that shocked either, right? Like there's holes in that game. He's not a surefire thing.
Yeah.
So you take those two and then whatever it takes to make the money work, and maybe you get a draft pick.
Aaron Nesmith maybe,
sure.
But he's their only capable defender, so they got to be careful there.
But I mean, I think what you're all getting at and what we all agree on is what that does. You get you a little bit younger, get you a little deeper, get you a little more cost certainty. Maybe it's a step in a process, and that's how we're going to have to go here. It's going to be, not necessarily almost like kind of a lateral move in order to kind of accumulate assets over time. And I've said this all along. To anyone who would listen to me, is this team feels asset poor.
Yes,
and I keep saying, if you go back to the way kind of we arrived at that championship, the Raptors arrived at this championship season and beyond, they were asset rich. They had lots of really, really good players. I always say, like that team that won 59 games, Norm Powell, who's a $100 million player, who's the sixth man on a team that hopes to win an NBA title, was the 11th guy. He couldn't play. That's how good your team was. And, and you look at, and that this team, this version is so far from that. And I think, I heard you guys talking off the top about Shohei and stars being in Toronto, and, we've seen it ad nauseum with the Raptors and stuff like that. I think it's important as an organization to really understand exactly what your market is. And, I used to do some baseball. I would talk to Alex Anthopoulos, and he would say, like, our vision is to be like the Tampa Bay Rays in terms of process, vision, discipline, commitment, but with money. And I think if you're properly evaluating, and it's no disrespect to the city, we all love and as we all know how great it is, but you have to understand where you are in the broader concept. And people aren't choosing Memphis over Toronto. People aren't choosing, no disrespect to Memphis. But there's probably 8 or 9 or 10 markets that most NBA players would clearly choose first, regardless of where they're from. And so create an advantage for yourself. And to me, with this organization, it probably speaks truly of the Jays as well, is become asset rich.
Yeah.
And then when you're asset rich, when you have a lot of young players, when you have surplus picks, when you're developing players from kind of unexpected corners, then, you can go and sort of make your moves. But right now they're not asset rich, and I would love to know if either you guys see a path from becoming asset rich.
I mean,
That's
they're still in a
basically
pick deficit.
Well, that's basically OKC is what you're describing. Become OKC. OKC can now
OKC with money and a real market.
Yeah. And what would that look like? What would that feel like? And I think, to me, then, if you're going to move Pascal, why not move OG as well? At least see what the opportunities are out there. Because, as you mentioned, even one move with Pascal is probably not going to replenish the whole group, the whole system, all the picks that you need moving forward. As you mentioned, Blake, they're pick deficient too. Why not just go in the whole way? Because to me, it's like, look, a year from now, 2 years from now, if you want to move OG making $40 million, can you get more for him then than you can right now at this current value?
I guess my concern with that is that OG fits a timeline where Scotty is really good in the next little bit. And if you want to tear it down to the studs like that and replenish the assets and get back to being asset rich, I would understand. I don't think this front office, I mean, the evidence we've seen over their decade in charge, I don't know that they have the stomach for a longer term one. And I would be worried that if you go all the way down to the studs, you move someone like OG who fits Scotty's timeline, and then a year and a half in, 2 years in, they're a little impatient. You're looking for a guy like that. And, the assets you're getting back, realistically, maybe one of them turns into that. But draft picks are flyers. And yes, you can get a Tyrese Halliburton in a sell trade. You can get a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a sell trade. But you have to identify those guys before they're Tyrese and Shai. And the evidence over the last couple of years, at least, is, look, these things are random and they're difficult. So maybe it's just been a cold stretch. But it does seem like on the identification and development side, they lost the fastball a little bit this last little bit. So, are in an OG deal, are you identifying the right depth pieces? Because, the team is not like being asset rich does not mean, hey, you've got 3 Malachi Flynn's and 3 Precious Achiuwas, right?
No, it doesn't. I think that's a real kind of thing they have to wrestle with, is by kind of pushing, and we'll see what happens, right? Like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or 2 months from now. Maybe we'll have a conversation Feb 10th.
Oh, we'll definitely have you. We're going to book you already, actually. Alex,
right.
Get on that.
But we'll look back and wow, there's some really inspired moves here. And we didn't see them coming, and kudos on them, and we'll all look foolish. But, I think one thing they do have to be concerned about, and by pushing it out this far, is you've kind of, I don't want to say wasted, but you only have so long to grow with Scotty Barnes, right? And so Scotty's into his 4th year next year. And to Blake's point, if you want to turn around and really go aggressive in terms of real, all of a sudden Scotty's standing around going, wait a second, I was in the playoffs 2 years ago. I was in the play-in game the year before, and we won 17 games this year. Am I really in for that? That's something they would need to really have a handle on. And mind you, they would still control his rights. Like, it wouldn't be like they'd lose the player, but like literally. But would you lose the player in terms of his willingness to put up with a step back?
Well, look, all this is presuming that they actually get something good. Like, there was the Chris Mannix report. It was like, could they get Tyler Hero on 2 first? You can have a conversation about that at least. Obviously there's a huge difference between what they can do defensively, but there's also a huge difference in what they do offensively. I mean, like, I watched a game like what happened against the Hornets, and like, Ochi was 0 for 6 from 3. He's averaging less than 15 points on the season. We're waiting for this offensive jump to happen. Meanwhile, there's $40 million waiting at the end of the season. Like,
I wrote about that last week.
Yeah. To me, I'm just like, this is it's a little much, but you know what? We can tear down the roster another day. We're going to have lots of conversations along this type of storyline. So, Grange, we appreciate you for coming in.
Always.
We're going to take a quick break. Been your host, Will, and you've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, let's talk Knicks. Welcome back to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. We continue to be joined by co-host Blake Murphy. We're working to get friend of the program, Katz of The Athletic, on the line to talk about the New York Knicks. Another thing we got to follow up on is the Raptors getting sued. Blake, give me 2 positive storylines from this year so far.
About the Raptors?
Yeah.
And you're teeing me up for that by talking about them getting sued?
Well, I was just thinking because I was like, okay, so they got sued. They didn't really make any moves.
Okay, number one storyline. That's probably they now have synergy access because they just downloaded it all internally. No, obviously the big one is Scotty Barnes has taken a real step forward at both ends of the floor. That's great. Yeah, that's the big one.
What's the other one?
I don't know. Like, is there
tough, man.
Like there have been
That's tough.
Like, look, Pascal's been good, OG's been good, but we did player grades last week, and everyone's kind of been what we knew they were. And then on the bench side, it's been, like Boucher's played to what we know he can when he's gotten opportunities, and everyone else has kind of been underwhelming. Grady Dick's down with the 905 and not playing particularly well still. It's not a great environment for someone with that skill set, but he still has not played or shot particularly well. So this is, I don't know if there's a second positive storyline, honestly.
That's the thing. That's why it's tough because, if I asked you to name like a couple of the unfortunate storylines, you'd be like, well, for example, apparently we just turned out having a WNBA team. That was earlier this year. We got sued by the Knicks. And whether or not it's a petty lawsuit, at the end of the day, like there was still some like improper activity going on. Whether it's like
it was mess.
It was messy. Exactly. Right. The product on the court, we just discussed it. The new coaching change. Can anyone tell me honestly that Darko is better tactically than Nick Nurse? No. He's a better people person than Nick Nurse, but that's not as much of a win when you look at some of the other things that have taken on. It's just it's just a lot, I guess is my point. And sometimes I do feel conscious because we got to come in every day to do this show, and I'm like, I don't want to just do the same show. I don't want to be so negative on this show. We know we can have really positive shows. We know we can feel really good about this team. That's what we all want.
I would prefer to do that.
But when you line it all up, like you just do a personal exercise, while you're listening right now, just like whip out a piece of paper, just draw a little T-chart and just be like pros and cons of Raptors this season. Good storylines, bad storylines. There's a lot of bad ones, man. I'm just saying the pizza party is going to be an all-timer. I'm just telling you now.
Yeah, it's look, it's unfortunate how that one came out and is being interpreted by us and everyone else. It doesn't sound like something a professional basketball team that told us that they thought they could win, be in above 500 teams. That's not the right messaging, right? Like that is moral victories is for minor league coaches, and that's like if Eric Curry was doing that with the 1-11 905, I would understand it a little bit.
Man. Yeah, they would really value.
By the way, actually, before we get Fred, there was one piece of Raptors news over the weekend.
Yes.
It's not in the positive thing, but for anyone who didn't catch it, the Raptors waived Ron Harper Jr. on Friday from his two-way contract because he's out for the year with a shoulder injury. They paid out his whole two-way deal, not just the guaranteed part. That's nice. Move. They signed Jonte Porter into that spot. If you don't remember, Jonte Porter was on the draft radar in 2019 a little bit. He had missed his entire sophomore season injured, decided to go into the draft anyway. He was actually, when the Raptors picked at 59 and picked DeJuan Hernandez, I went back and found tweets. He was the top of my list still, which was it was an okay list because there are a couple guys on there who are NBA guys, but I had Jonte Porter one spot ahead of Lou Dort, which is not a great look in retrospect. This is now, by the way, of the guys at 59 they considered, this is now the fifth one they've had because they had Shamori Pons at one point, they had O'Shea, they had Terrence Davis, they drafted DeJuan Hernandez and Jonte Porter now. All five of those guys were in the mix for them at 59, so they're just getting a shot at all of them. We could talk more Jonte Porter after we talk to our pal Fred Katz.
Yeah, let's bring in Fred Katz and of The Athletic. Fred, how you doing, man?
I'm wonderful. I'm just thrilled that there's so much coverage of a fellow Mizzou alum out there like Jonte Porter.
Yeah,
tear up the league.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Good for you, Mizzou guys. You did not get a law degree at Mizzou, though. You got a broadcast journalism degree, if I remember correctly. How are you doing dabbling in the legal realm with this Raptors-Knicks nonsense, which we should get some sort of leaked update today or later this week because the Raptors had to counterfile by today on that nonsensical lawsuit?
How am I doing? It's part of journalism, right? Part of being a reporter is knowing how to cover things that aren't just pick and rolls. It's knowing how to when you're in journalism school, you learn how to cover all different kinds of stuff that could end up in the public, and lawsuits are most certainly one of them, especially when you're covering the New York Knicks, where there are lawsuits to cover all the time. So I'm right in my comfort zone.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that part of it is good. I feel a little bad that this takes a part of your work days and your work weeks. I know you and Mike Vorkunov have kind of written about this and teamed up on it a little bit here and there. Our read on it internally is maybe colored by what Masai and Darko have said and our general impressions of the Knicks. On the New York side of this, have you got the sense that this is any more than like a Dolan frivolous lawsuit? Like, is there more meat than maybe we're half seriously giving to it?
Well, what the Knicks are saying, or at least what the Knicks are saying in their lawsuit, and what MSG is saying in its lawsuit, is that this violated actual federal computer laws in the US. And what it almost seems like is that they are hoping that criminal charges are going to come along with this. And it's not just going to be a civil lawsuit. I don't know if that's what ends up happening. I don't know how far this ends up going. I will say, I think a lot of people wrote this off as just like, okay, there will be some sort of settlement early, and this is not going to go into discovery. It's not going to actually go to actual civil trial or anything like that. I'm not thinking that way. I think it is totally within the realm of possibilities this goes to discovery, totally within the realm of possibilities that this thing gets seen through, because the Knicks continue to push that, or I should say MSG and its lawyers continue to push that they want to see this thing through. So I don't know how it's going to go. I don't. I think we're going to be able to get a better read of that if and when this thing gets to discovery and we get to see this evidence. But the Knicks are levying a lot of claims, some of which they say they have evidence for, others of which they present no evidence for, and they believe they will uncover evidence for at discovery. So like I said, when we get to discovery, we'll see exactly how this goes, and then maybe I can give you a better answer on that. But quite honestly, I have no idea right now. What I will say is that people around the league are like, what the hell is going on here? Like, the general reaction to this is, what in the world is happening with this? People take their own work with them all the time when they go to other teams, especially stuff from Synergy, which is just like a shared database around the league.
Yeah, I've kind of explained to our audience what you can do with Synergy versus what teams actually have. Fred, before we pivot to the actual basketball here, though, I do have to ask, let's say this goes past discovery. Let's say there's a court case and the Raptors are on one side and Garrett Temple is using his LSAT score to litigate for the Raptors. The Knicks are over on the other side. I assume Charles Oakley's the bailiff at this point, since he played for both teams, can be neutral.
Conflict of interest. Yeah. Dolan kicked him out of MSG.
Okay, but Dolan has a conflict of interest with every single person is the issue. What is like the funniest, silliest, goofiest thing that could happen if this thing extends on it, in your estimation?
If Leon Rose gets deposed and has to give his first ever solo availability since becoming president of the Knicks. Wow. All I'm doing is going to the other council and being like, can you ask him what the rationale of the Evan Fournier contract was? Like, he's got to answer stuff. Like, let's get all of our questions in that we wanted to ask for the last 3.5 years. Those in New York know that the Knicks front office has not done a solo media availability since Leon Rose took over in April of 2020. So just using that to get a media availability, I think would be maybe the way to go about it.
That's actually wild, man. How do they get away with that? Are there not rules around when executives have to talk?
Oh, trust me. These are conversations I've had. No, there are no rules for executives and how often they have to speak.
This is a great answer, because now I'm imagining it getting to that point, and like one of you guys, like I joked about Garrett Temple taking his LSATs and he can litigate for the Raptors. Like, someone on the Knicks beat, there are a handful of us in basketball media who have gone the law school route or dabbled with it or whatever. Like, get a media member in there to be part of the deposition team, and grill them about, hey, we need to know, this is for the Azatam case, this is for the Synergy case. Evan Fournier, man, what's the deal?
Well, one of the things is, like, in certain stages of this, I'm not going to overcomplicate this, but I have spoken to lawyers, and at least in my research, to be able to say this. In certain stages of this, you could throw people on the stand and you can ask them whatever you want. This is not like you don't need to prove that it's relevant to the case in order to ask certain questions. So you can depose James Dolan and just ask him all the stuff that you've wanted to know about what's going on at MSG behind closed doors.
So the Bargnani trade, what were you thinking with this Bargnani trade?
Forget about that. You can ask him about Anuka Brown Sanders, like you could ask him about a lot of things that have gone on behind closed doors. And that, quite honestly, is something that will be very fascinating to follow. Who gets deposed? What do they get asked? And how do the lawyers representing MLSE and the Raptors and all of those defendants over there, how do those lawyers handle the people who end up getting deposed if it gets to that stage, of course?
Okay, let's pivot over to basketball. Let's talk about what's happening on the court, not what's happening in the courts. Raptors played the Knicks last week. Knicks looked really, really awesome, I got to say. The Knicks bench came in. Josh Hart had a huge impact. Dante DiVincenzo hit like 7 threes, I think. He really went off.
Yeah, more than the Raptors hit like all of the last week.
We're not kidding because the Raptors actually only hit 6 against the Hornets and the loss of the Hornets. Anyway, so yeah, I guess my impression is just like, are the Knicks like legit? Are they for real? Like, what's going on? Because if the Knicks play like that against other teams, I think they might be heading for like a 50-win season type of thing. They played that well when they came to Toronto. So where's your assessment at how good this current Knicks team is?
Yeah, they played great in that game. That was one of the best performances they've had all year, I think. On top of the fact that it was on the road, it was also the second night of a back-to-back for them, right. And they did not play well on that first night of the back-to-back. They barely beat Detroit, and they should have won that game by a lot more. And the vibes coming out of that game were like, man, that was like as bad. You know how you hear about moral victories after losses all the time. I mean, that really felt like a moral loss after a win, that Detroit game. And they came out the next night and they just executed so well. This is a bad day for Knicks fans and for the Knicks because the team just announced only a few hours ago that Mitchell Robinson is going to be out at least 8 to 10 weeks and is undergoing ankle surgery. And that is huge for them because he was really good in that game, and he is their most important defender. He's the anchor of their defense. He is having unquestionably the best season of his career. He's been fantastic defensively. I think he should be in the conversation for all defense. If not, like if I went through and I made my all defense teams right now, I think I'd almost certainly have to put him on there. Something that's a lot easier to do now that all defense is positionless and you don't have to put only 2 centers. And you can just kind of load it up with centers. He's really been that good this year. He's been one of the best big men in passing lanes in the league. He's been disciplined. He's been closing out on guys on the perimeter. He's been a fantastic pick and roll defender. And he's having by far the best offensive rebounding season of his career and the best offensive rebounding season in the NBA this year. He's been huge for them. The offensive rebounding is huge for them because they're an above average offense, in part because they just win the possession game. They don't make a lot of shots. They have somehow found a way to be a really good offense without making a lot of shots, which seems like it makes no sense. But the reason why is because they don't turn the ball over and they get a ton of offensive rebounds. So come the end of the game, they've taken like 12 more shots than you, which often ends up being the difference in the game. And not having Mitchell Robinson is going to eat into that a ton because he is so much, even on the offensive rebounds, he doesn't get. He is so much a ginormous part of them winning that possession game. It's going to be tough. Hartenstein is one of the best backup centers in the league, but that's obviously a really tough loss for them. And then Jericho Sims is going to have to slide into the rotation, and we'll see. I'm very curious to see what kind of team they are without Mitchell Robinson before I start to wonder exactly how many wins they end up at.
Yeah, the Robinson loss, it sucks from a general basketball fan standpoint because this Knicks team has been, like an ugly fun watch. They don't play, it's not Pacers games, but they are a borderline top 10 defense. I think they're ninth coming into today. And like you said, they're number one on rebounding at both ends of the floor. And what you described, Fred, in terms of winning the possession battle, Raptors fans know that well. The Raptors set a league record last year for having more shooting possessions than their opponent. And Knicks are first in the league right now. So that's the Bulls are the only team like even really close. and that's mostly because they just don't turn the ball over. Knicks doing it with rebounding and with turnovers. And yeah, Mitchell Robinson, I mean, top 15 if you look at defensive estimated plus minus or choose your metric. Basically, metric, eye test, box score stats, they all say Robinson's been huge. Now, like you said, those same things also say Hartenstein's been really good in a backup role. He's a guy that I've liked for a while, back to, you know, his G League time. Do you think what he's done can scale to more minutes? Or, and you mentioned the Jericho Sims question, is there a possibility this means the Knicks, you know, suck it up and go smaller a little bit more often, and maybe, you know, Julius Randle is kind of the de facto 5 at times?
This is my guess, knowing Tibbs. I don't think we're going to see very much small ball, at least not as a first option. Maybe if they really struggle with Jericho Sims on the floor, or Sims really, really struggles, or maybe if they're down 14 points with 5 minutes left and they just need a run and they need a lot of offense, maybe they go small with Julius Randle at the 5. But Tibbs has been the coach of this team now for a long time, and they almost never go with Julius Randle at the 5. It's so incredibly rare. They haven't done it at all this season, like not at all. And the reason why is because their defense is built like many Tibbs defenses. Their defense is built from the paint out, and that is the way it works. And Randle is not a defensive anchor. As a matter of fact, of the 9 regulars in their rotation, he's the only guy who I would say has like really been subpar defensively this year. Like, I know people talk about Jalen Brunson's defensive deficiencies. I think those show more in the playoffs when you get a team that can kind of attack him throughout a series and understand how to deal with those weaknesses. But Brunson's deficiencies are more physical than they are intellectual, or they are from an effort standpoint. He's actually drawn more offensive fouls than any other team, than any other player in the league this year. He's a good positional defender, fights really hard. Like, he's like fine. I don't think his mere presence.
What'd you call him? A crash test dummy in an article the other week?
Yes, he is a crash test dummy. He gets annihilated for the sport of it. That's exactly what he does. He's actually
what they teach you at Villanova, actually, because this is exactly what Kyle used to do.
Yeah. That's what Kyle Lowry does. That's what Josh Hart does. That's what Dante DiVincenzo does. That's what all the Knicks do, because they're all Villanova alums. But yeah, I don't think we see a lot of Randle. As for Hartenstein, I think he's been one of the 5 best backup centers in the league over the last 2 years since signing with the Knicks. He's been really good. He's a really wonderful passer. And I think there are certain things he's going to be able to bring out of the Knicks first unit that Robinson can't do. Like, you're not giving Mitchell Robinson the ball because he doesn't have the ball skills. He doesn't have the scoring skills. Hartenstein, wonderful passer. He is going to give them a little bit more spacing. No, he doesn't really shoot the 3. He doesn't like to shoot the 3, and it's not part of his game, even though he can occasionally hit one. But you have to guard him when he's away from the rim, because he will slice you up as a passer. If you don't, or he'll just go straight at the rim and get a layup because he's got a handle for somebody his size, and he's a good passer and all those other sorts of things. He's very skilled. Defensively, he's been good. Good positional defender, good verticality guy. My big question for him is he can get himself in foul trouble, which is a trait that a lot of backup centers have. And I'm wondering how much of the foul trouble that he can get himself in is because he knows, okay, well, Mitch is going to play at least 25 minutes, maybe 30, which means I'm not getting more than 23. So I can go out there and I can use my 6 fouls as much as I want, and chances are I'm fine. Now, when he might have to be the one getting, 30 instead of the 17 that he's been averaging so far this year, is he going to be able to be more judicious with his fouls? And if he is more judicious with his fouls, does that take away at all from his defensive aggressiveness that's helped him be a really, really reliable defender for them? I'm very curious to see how he weighs that starting tonight against Toronto. And he's a good player, but obviously his production has come mostly against backups. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that does when he's going up against, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic and other top-notch centers and starters.
Jakob Poeltl.
All of a sudden the job's a lot harder. And Jakob Poeltl, all of a sudden, who is an underrated player,
He is
now
underrated.
the job becomes more difficult.
There you go. Okay, last question to get you out on. There's also this other piece with the Knicks, because I feel like obviously they're succeeding right now. It's unfortunate that Mitchell Robinson's injured. but overall the team is working and successful. But it does feel like there is still maybe another big piece that they could add to this squad if they choose to do so. They do have extra picks. They do have, like an RJ Barrett that they could roll up into another trade, or even Julius Randle, or whoever you necessarily need to do this with. Pretty much anyone except for Brunson. I guess my question is like, who are they waiting on, or is like who is like the ideal gettable guy that they could add into the squad and then truly bring them to the next level, especially come playoff time?
I think they're waiting on two different types of guys.
Okay.
I think the first guy who everybody talks about them waiting on, who's the MVP level player that they're going to trade for, the huge star. I don't think they expect that guy to become available during the season, because it's pretty rare that that type of player does become available during that, the middle of the season. Like a midseason Kevin Durant trade is pretty rare. That was kind of the exception, and it doesn't really happen. So I think they expect whoever that next player is to become available in the summer at the soonest. I don't know who it's going to be. I think targeting out, this is definitely the guy who it's going to be, kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. The point of the thing is that they are waiting on somebody who is a star, and whoever is the star that becomes disgruntled or available, or however you want to put it, they can then have the assets. They have all their own picks. They have 4 protected picks from other teams. They have some young guys who are good players. They can then jump in and make themselves part of the discussion for that guy. Maybe it's Donovan Mitchell, who is going to be up in 2025 with Cleveland. Maybe, it's who knows about Joel Embiid. Right. They're doing great right now. Philly looks awesome. What happens if they lose in the first round of the playoffs? No, you never know. Yep. Somebody who's not on the tip of any of our tongues is going to become available within the next year, right? Like that's just how the NBA works. That's how Kevin Durant went down. That's how James Harden went down like 4 times in a row. Somebody who's not at the tip of your tongues just becomes available seemingly overnight. I think the Knicks are waiting to bank on that. And then there's the other type of trade, which I think is more likely, which is before the upcoming deadline, where they do a trade that's kind of similar to what they did last year with Josh Hart, where they're in a position to where they have the Evan Fournier contract. It's about a little over $18 million. You could send out Evan Fournier's salary, somebody else, bring back somebody who makes in the mid-20s, bring back, I don't know, maybe one of the million expiring players for the Toronto Raptors. If those two teams could make a trade, I have no idea if given like the lawsuit and everything, if those two teams would
I was going to say down. There are no transactions happening between these two teams, man. Azultan's the last one.
Exactly. Like the Knicks are going to like cost themselves OG Anunoby because of
launder him through a third team. Do a 2-part trade.
Yeah, we'll give you OG if you drop the lawsuit kind of deal. No, we're not going to do that.
No, there you go.
That's not going to happen.
Circle back,
man.
guys. No, but we're going to circle back. That is the funniest thing that could happen at trial.
Yeah.
If a lawyer gets up there and says, we will settle for Gary Trent. You give us Gary Trent, this thing will be settled.
You know what? That could actually happen. All right, Brett. We appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining us on the program, and I'm sure we'll call you again the next time the Raptors play the Knicks.
Yes, thank you for having me, guys.
There you go. Fred Katz, who's been, as you mentioned, doing great reporting around this lawsuit too. And I think it is really important, as you mentioned. I was really happy you said that, because like obviously in our market right now, we're looking at it like it's more frivolous. But like if they're moving this far and they're going this far out,
this stuff costs resources.
Yeah, it really does.
Fred Katz, by the way, great reporting at The Athletic. And also just like the best name for a podcast, him and Ian Begley's podcast, the Cats and Shoot podcast.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You know what?
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm officially over podcasts that have a basketball terminology pun in it.
It's a pretty good one, though.
Like Dunker Spot. Like I love the Dunker Spot pod. The Dunker Spot? Is that hidden? The low post? It's the whole, all of them are like this. Is what I'm trying to say.
Testing. Am I back? Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to try?
You do a show called The Raptors Show, man.
No, that's different.
But it's not a pun.
That's not a pun.
You have a problem with any like direct reference.
It's like the Brooklyn Nets being called the Nets. Like it's a part of the game. Like, Anyway, okay. That's my only thing.
By the way, we were talking Las Vegas nicknames last week, if you guys remember. Yeah. Someone on Twitter, sorry, I forgot the name, can't attribute it right now, but said we forgot the Las Vegas Strip.
Nah, you're not signing a free agent and telling him to be, hey, you're going to be
The
a
strippers.
strip. Yeah.
What, a stripper a bad thing to say?
No, it's just like you're not going to have someone that's too tough. It was LJ Shank on Twitter. By
It
the
wouldn't
way,
be. It wouldn't be a rip through. It's a strip through.
Yeah. All right. That seems like a good point to pivot. It's time now for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. We laid out the Mitchell Robinson injury. He's out for 8 to 10 weeks. Isaiah Hartenstein is expected to start in his place. Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley are both questionable for the Knicks for this one. So those are big unknowns. Obviously, either of those guys being out is a big thing, but one of them would replace the other one if they were out. Jalen Brunson all the quotes from practice yesterday were that like Jalen Brunson is not worried about this ankle thing. Yeah. He's probably going to play. Emmanuel Quickley dealing with the knee thing. So they're both questionable. On the Raptors side, Otto Porter Jr. is out. That's not expected to be serious. The foot contusion he's dealing with. Apparently, he felt better yesterday. Imaging came back negative, but he's out for tonight. The Raptors are 4-point underdogs, over-under set at 221. This is a really good Knicks, one of the few teams in basketball, top 10 on both ends of the floor. But Fred laid it out for us, man. How's this defense going to look going from 30 minutes of Mitchell Robinson and 18 to 20 of Hartenstein to 25 to 28 of Hartenstein and a question mark in Jericho Sims?
It's going to be pretty important. I mean, as every team in the NBA should know by now, if you can protect the paint against the Raptors, you have a pretty good chance at beating the Raptors because they will shoot 6 of 32 from 3. And, last game, even though I thought Pascal found ways to get going for certain moments in the game, and I thought he had a pretty good game overall, if you are really able to guard the rim, and obviously Mitchell Robinson was able to do that, you have a good chance. Now, Isaiah is going to come in, and he's going to be a big body. Jalen Brunson is going to step in for charges like he did last time the Raptors played them. I think he erased 2 and 1s for the Raptors just with charges alone. That's huge momentum plays. There's other ways to protect the rim even without their best shot blocker. Tibbs is going to be a great, defensive coach no matter what. But I think the bigger thing that's a question to me is like, whatever. I mean, Jalen's questionable. Emmanuel Quickley's questionable. The Raptors as a team is questionable. Which team is going to show up?
Oh, bars.
Which team is going to show up? Because last time we did this, it was last Friday, we were talking, well, the Raptors played the Hornets tonight. It's like, well, you better beat the Hornets. And then it didn't beat the Hornets.
But here's the question. When is I guess the Suns game. But they've dropped 5 of their last 6. The Suns game, they obviously showed up well and won that one.
Yeah.
But like the Knicks game, they didn't play particularly well. The Heat game, they didn't play particularly well. The Hornets game, they didn't play particularly well. The Nets game, they played terribly before that Suns loss. They played Cleveland pretty tough, the first loss of that stretch, and Cleveland's a decent team. But I would say like twice in this 1-5 stretch, you would say they played a good game of basketball.
Yeah,
that is tough.
So that's why I'm going with the Knicks.
All right. When Will bails on the Raptors, you know it's looking tough.
Listen, I'm not trying to lose people any money. I'm not trying to lose myself any credibility. Until I see the Raptors actually start to show up on a more consistent basis, until they stop falling down by 12, 15 points by the end of the first quarter, until they stop running only Dennis Jakob-Poeltl pick and rolls for the first quarter while Pascal and OG and Scotty just sit around. I'm sorry. Like, I can't, in good conscience, go with the Raptors.
And here's the other thing is, like, we saw last year, and, like, we would make a joke about it a little bit here and there about just how much the Raptors gamed the possession battle last year because, hey, they weren't a good three-point shooting team. They weren't a good shooting team overall, and their defense had some flaws. But they got 750 more shooting possessions than their opponents last year. So almost 10 a game. And you're looking at this year's team that isn't doing nearly as good a job of that because they're not emphasizing it to that extreme level, but they're not winning the possession battle, period, now. And you're going up against a team that does the best job of it. So you are the worst three-point shooting team and the second worst free throw shooting team in the league already. And you're going up against a team that is, a big part of their strategy is we're also going to let you get fewer shots.
Yeah.
Could be a tough night for the offense.
Anyway.
Yeah, that was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance.
Take a chance on the Knicks, everyone. Take a chance on the Knicks. Okay, we're going to take our last break of the day. I've been your host, Willu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Willu. For the final segment, we're going to go around the NBA with Alex Wong, who's tapping back in with myself and Blake Murphy. Alex, take it away.
Why am I taking it away? Because you never read the rundown that we try to prepare for you, main host.
Can you do one segment, man? Do I got a bet?
You know what the worst part of all is? I
How does Derek have something? Derek, I want to hear that Adam Silver drop at least twice this segment because it always makes my day.
I'm enjoying all the banter.
I'm enjoying all the banter.
Sounds AI generated, man.
I'm enjoying all the banter.
All right, he filled his 2 quota already. I want 10 then. New York related too. I know you guys just had a great segment with Freddie Meow, a.k.a. Freddie Katz. The new Kid Mero and Carmelo Anthony pod, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn.
Yo, it's fire.
Check that on the weekend.
Yep.
Really good.
You got to listen to at one-time speed, though. Here's the thing. Some podcasts, you can really go 1.2, 1.5. I even know some people who listen 2-time speed on podcasts. That's
chipmunk. You're starting to sound like a chipmunk at 2.
Yeah, everyone starts to sound like Iman at that point.
They sound like Twister, man. Which one?
Exactly, right? But no, that one, you got to listen to 1-time speed. You got to enjoy just that, like.
Yeah. Great pod, though.
Great pod.
I don't know if you guys have checked it out. So
very happy for Mero.
Highly recommend.
Kid Mero and Carmelo, you guys are obviously listening to this. come on the show, talk about the new pod.
Yo,
I think we can get them.
100%.
I think we can get Mero. 100%.
Sure. Let's get Melo too.
Let me work on that. Yeah. Guys, we didn't even talk about the in-season tournament, man.
No, LA we spent the whole first segment talking about another big LA win. We didn't need to talk about
congratulations once again to the city of Los Angeles. They took the NBA Cup, as I told you the Lakers would.
You did tell me to bet on the Lakers.
I said put all your money on the Lakers.
I had a Pacers future, and I was like, I had forgotten all about it until Saturday when I went to bet on the game, and I was like, oh, I already have this.
You know what? I knew they were gonna win when LeBron called Adam Silver a genius for the in-season tournament, and it was done. Yeah. When has LeBron lost a must-win game? Must-win game 2 to someone not like a dynasty, like a Steph, KD.
That's the thing that's so impressive because I think Brian Windhorst, of course, Brian Windhorst, but he was one who tracked it. It's like LeBron is won 9 straight of these must-win Game 7 winner-take-all scenario.
And he only loses the dynasty team.
No, it's like one thing if you got swept by the Warriors or whatever.
Yes, even the Nuggets last year. Give them credit.
The Nuggets,
give them credit.
But it's like his version of how Michael Jordan is 6-0 in the NBA Finals. It's like, Michael Jordan lost in earlier rounds.
Yeah.
He didn't win the championship every season of his career. But once it got to that point, and it had ramped up and that gear switched in, is no,
man. You could think about it. LeBron Game 7s is wild. What he had against the Pacers, the must-win games that he's had against the Celtics to end that era, the must-win games that he had against obviously the Spurs, 2013, Game 6, Game 7, winning both of those. Obviously 2016 is probably the most memorable playoff game I've ever seen in my life. Aside from the Raptors winning in 2019.
Why did I just sound like the Kool-Aid man? Oh, yeah.
This is what he does.
He literally has had a whole last quarter of his career and then circled back and broke the Pacers' hearts again. Because he did it in 2018 and people don't talk about that first round series where LeBron literally single-handedly made sure they won in 7 games.
Yes.
Because people only remember the series that came after, which was LeBron sweeping the Raptors, which was way more memorable.
I still remember an Eastern Conference final that was 2-2, and LeBron said, "This isn't adversity."
Too.
No, I'm ready for Game 7s. I'm gonna chase down Iguodala a couple of weeks.
I want Iguodala.
LeBron's I
want Iguodala.
LeBron was I lost those 2 games so I can come back and see Drake a second time in Toronto. Toronto in May is very nice.
But anyways, Anthony Davis, obviously incredible in that game. Blake, what were your takeaways watching that game?
I mean, Anthony Davis, a 40-20 in a game like that is this is the Anthony Davis we have all asked for years, right? That he's flashed at times. An Anthony Davis who can take over offensively and defend at an all-defense level. I really do think, if the Lakers stay good, and some of this will just because Lakers buzz, but Anthony Davis is having an all-defense caliber season, and I would imagine get some love for Defensive Player of the Year if this continues on like that. Obviously, weirdly, that game, the stats don't count. Anthony Davis technically does not have a 40-20 game in his NBA career.
I don't like that. I know it's the extra game.
It's the same with the play-in tournament. Those stats are just gone.
The Raptors never shot 18 of 36 from the free throw line.
DeAndre DeRozan just doesn't exist.
That's why they shot 50% from free throws for this entire season to make sure it's on the record. So I mean, I thought Anthony Davis was great, and that's the kind of LeBron co-star we thought we were getting when they first teamed up, and we saw it in the bubble. But in my mind, we haven't seen that level of Anthony Davis regularly enough during this partnership, and I would love to see that, and I know he had a good playoffs last year, but that level of Anthony Davis is something that, you rewind 5 years. We thought that he was going to be, maybe the best player on LeBron's team. And LeBron, part of this was he could shift into a number 2 role. Now that was true on Saturday. It's not true overall, but this is the kind of Anthony Davis we've all thought was there and wanted to see from him more regularly.
We all knew that AD could feast on the Pacers on the inside because we know the Pacers are like just really, really weak defensively on the interior.
They
right?
love giving up the paint.
Yeah, they don't double team. We talked about Caitlin Cooper, and then later that afternoon, Pascal went on drop like 30 plus in that one as well. Just all exclusively paint points. Same kind of deal with AD here. What was interesting to me was how impressive the Lakers were defensively to shut down what the Pacers like to do. They obviously put length on the ball, but they really, really held Halliburton in check. They blitzed a lot of his pick and rolls. And they just did a great job covering him.
It's their worst offensive performance of the season on a points per possession basis.
Yeah, and this is the team that, had their offense run pretty well against the Bucks, had their offense run pretty well against the Celtics. So for the Lakers to come in and do this, I was just genuinely impressed. Also, like a guy like Cam Reddish, again, they got him in for nothing. He comes in, he's closing games for them. He's playing really well on both ends of the floor. Like the whole roster really came in and did well, and so
a hilarious Cam Reddish experience for me personally was, so I was watching the game with JD Bunkus, and he had like Cam Reddish over 8.5 points and was just like edge of his seat.
Wait, did Cam hit?
Yeah, it hit. Yeah,
he was at 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope JD got 500K, man.
Edge of his seat to the very end on Cam Reddish.
500K or dinner.
Yeah,
with
that's a degenerate bet. So I think my other takeaway here is like, obviously we can, the in-season tournament was a success. They'll tweak things in the future, but LeBron carrying this much, the Lakers winning, LeBron winning MVP, I think is, if the league could have picked an outcome, this was it. I think now you can name the in-season MVP after LeBron later. And it's always going to have that LeBron won the first one.
This is so funny because I don't feel like in other sports people talk about what would be best for the league. Like people got to root for the NBA as a league, like if they're a startup or something. Like when people watch NFL, they're not like, oh wow, Patrick Mahomes just won the Super Bowl again. That's great for the NFL. That's great for the league.
They do that in the NFL.
But they got to root for the league. Like the Premier League is not like, oh, Liverpool won it this year. That was great for the league.
Like I don't care about the TV ratings in the championship. Like I didn't care that it was the Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers in the World Series because the ratings. But if the league wants the in-season tournament to be a success, and we all had fun with it, if we want it to be back and to be something that sustains just for something different, it is important that it does well.
Yeah, I guess, but I would have been happy with any outcome of the tournament because the games were competitive. That's the whole point, is the games are competitive. I hear what you're saying about the business side of things. I do think for the Pacers, though, they got a taste of what it's like to have to win must-win games.
Yeah.
And you do hit a ceiling eventually, especially when you don't have big forwards to contend with the type of big forwards that you would see like in the Lakers. So, if they had to trade for somebody like that, I mean, I would call around the league right now. That's
yeah.
I'm begging on air.
No, I think that's a really good point. Like even going back to the semifinals game when the Pelicans just didn't show up. Like these type of must-win games kind of show you a little bit about these teams,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
So they should name which Lakers player do you think most likely took the 500K and went to the casino after? Gabe Vincent, Max Christie.
Yo, it was great when they showed the trio of Demoy. What was his name again?
Hodge.
Demoy Hodge.
Oh, is this Mr. Fudge?
Demoy Hodge, Alex Fudge,
Colin Castleton, Jalen Hood Scafino.
Oh my God! These are all backup QBs for the Cleveland Browns.
Look, they have 5 rookies on this team. The 3 two-ways and 2 other ones. So those guys definitely didn't blow their money. I've told you guys the story before. Like when I was on the road with 905, and the Exhibit 10 bonus hit everyone's bank account while I was on the road with them, and the guys who had been around, like Tyler Ennis, knew what to expect and to budget around that, and then the rookies were just like I have 50K. It's like, no. You're going to get taxed like that's a bonus.
Right.
So you're not getting 50K. And then also that's it. You're on a G League salary. That's it for the year. It was funny to experience. I would imagine these guys are a little more careful about theirs. I kind of think Christian Wood
does strike me as a risk taker. I guess I'll put it lightly.
Yeah.
Speaking of, pizza parties and stuff. So I pulled up. So LeBron, his first ever game against the Pacers was in November 2003. It was his 5th or 6th game of his rookie season.
Yeah.
You
ask me who's on that team?
if you can name the other 4 starters on the Cavs, and then one of you can name the other 5 starters on the Pacers, I will offer up 2 pizza parties. So who wants to take the Cavs?
I'll take the Cavs because I besides Reggie Miller, I don't know who.
Okay,
was on
you get 8 guesses to get these 4 players, these 4 other starters.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Blake can't help because Blake's going to take the Pacers.
We're talking about the starter.
2003 Pacers.
Okay. Because I think I've got a couple of the Cavs off the top of my head. If we're rookie year LeBron.
We can't. Blake's going to get it. So, okay, here we go.
Zadrunas Sagauskas?
Yep, there you go.
Okay.
One of one.
Good.
Yeah.
Who was on? Oh, Larry Hughes?
No, that's a brick.
That's a brick.
Yeah, 1 of 2. Think before Larry Hughes.
Jeff McGinnis?
No, you got to think all those guys who disrespected LeBron being like, he's got to fit in. He has to fit in.
That's a great hit.
He'll fit in with us.
Carlos Boozer?
Boozer's on there.
Okay.
Yep. So you're 2 away. These are 2 swingman guard types.
2
One was in a movie, and one told LeBron he's going to have to fit in with him.
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought that was Jeff McGinnis.
No,
it wasn't. Okay.
No.
Funnier than Jeff McGinnis.
Yeah.
What is that?
Call him Blake for the lifeline.
All right, Blake, go ahead.
One lifeline only, though.
Okay. Am I giving him the answer or bigger hit?
Give him one of the 2 that's remaining.
Ricky Davis is the one
so
you're
Ricky
missing on there.
Davis.
And then the other one, he gave you a movie hint. You could say movies.
I only know him in 1 movie. I'm going to look up his IMDb
I got
right
2
now.
for him.
He's a movie star. He's best known on the Clippers.
Oh.
Wore a headband.
Darius Miles?
There we go.
There, okay.
National Lampoon's Van Wilder.
Van Wilder, and what's the other one? The Perfect Score?
The Perfect Score is the one I remember him for.
That launched Chris Evans' career.
Okay, you only getting
VHS movie.
Have you heard that? Have you seen that movie before?
No.
They steal the SAT answer. It's a big heist movie. They steal the SAT answers, and Darius Miles, they all have their own individual motivation. And Darius Miles is like, so he can get into a better school to play basketball because he doesn't have the marks to get into school.
What? We need to do
Derrick Rose storyline.
We need to do a rewatchables of SATs with Garrett Temple.
Yeah.
Okay, Pacers, Blake, I'm going to make it easier for you. You only need to get 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Because 5 is
LeBron
really
rookie year, Reggie was still around.
So Reggie is 1, yep. You only need to get 4.
It's pre-Jermaine O'Neal traded to the Raptors, so Jermaine O'Neal's there.
Yep.
Nice.
They got a guy that I used to love on fantasy because all you do is grab boards.
Jeff Foster?
Yes.
Oh,
3.
That's sick.
This, and then you got 2 left.
Al Harrington?
No. So I'll give you 5 guesses.
Was Harrington on that team?
Yes, off the bench.
Okay.
So you have a point guard, and I can't really give a hint for this other one, but this other player. The point guard is
Meta
tricky.
World Peace.
There you go.
Or Ron Artest.
The point guard you would have never gotten because he might have. It's Kenny Anderson.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. You probably could have given me.
All right.
I mean, you could have over hinted. The only way for me to get that is if you gave a hint that was too obvious.
So
but Al Harrington was on that team.
Yes, he came off the bench.
And then Fred Jones was on that team.
Scott Pollard, Austin Crozier, Primo Brezic.
Oh, the gangster.
Was that his nickname?
Yeah, he was he learned English listening to hip hop and stuff, right? That's the story behind that one. Yeah,
he would tell people he was gangster.
Chris for the Cavs off the bench. Chris Mim.
Nice.
Kevin Ollie.
Oh wow.
J.R. Bremer. Is that when J.R.'s driving by the Sky Dome? J.R. Bremer.
Capono on that Cavs team too.
Yes. DMP.
Okay.
Two former Raptors caught a DMP. Jason Capono and Yogi Stewart.
Yogi Stewart.
Yeah. Here's my actual question for
Sagana Diop.
Shouts to Sagana Diop.
He's a G League coach now.
Did either of those 2 teams, the Pacers or the Cavs in 2003, did either of them hit more than the Raptors hit from 3, which was 6?
Okay, so this is really back in the day. Oh my God. Do you guys want to hear this? Okay.
Yeah.
In that game, Cleveland only shot 6 threes, 3 of 6.
Okay.
The Pacers were 6 of 18.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Reggie Miller
that had to be all Reggie Miller,
Reggie
right?
was 3 of 5.
Okay.
Anthony Johnson 2 of 4. And Fred Jones got them the other one as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
we hit as many threes last week as
the 2003 Pacers.
We're so bad we don't even shoot tour dates. We shoot fake dates, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We shot June 32nd. That's how you know you're bad. Anyways, overall in-season tournament, I know we've covered it a lot. Anything stand out to in terms of, hey, what do I want to add? What do I want to change? What do you guys want to see for next season?
It was difficult seeing it in a neutral site. I know that this is something you guys all talked about. I had some hope that there would be fans traveling, But the fact that they had to keep the lights so dim so you couldn't see how many
lights
empties.
were not bright enough.
The lights were dimmer than expected. The seats were emptier than expected. No, seriously though, it would have been super sick for that to take place either in Indiana or in LA. Like it would have been sick with actual fans.
Yeah.
The tough part is going to be logistically. They like one of the things the league, and Tim Bontemps had a piece at ESPN today. He talked to league people, coaches, teams, players, and one of the things the league is going to have to figure out is like even those 2 makeup games that teams had, logistically teams were having trouble fitting them in schedules, selling tickets in time. And like
the Raptors had the same issue.
Imagine if the Raptors went to the finals and it's not a neutral site and you're juggling around the Leafs and concerts and stuff like that. Yeah. And the league's like, you got to keep you have to keep Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday all open that week in case you make a run in the tournament or you don't. I don't know. Like there are some teams who could, but logistically, some of the teams I don't know how feasible it is.
Yeah, I would like
unless the schedule's flexible.
I think I would like to see the group stage play, and I don't know what the solution is to make it more kind of interesting because it was very easy for like a team like the Raptors. You lose that first game against the Celtics, and it's like, oh, they're pretty much out.
You're done
unless they win out. So, is there a way where we can create an environment where there's more meaning to all the games?
So this couldn't happen until the tournament is a little bigger, and whether the league's at 32 or they invite the G League Showcase winner or European teams or whatever. I had this idea watching the Hornets game. You should be able to get relegated from the in-season tournament where you are not allowed in the in-season tournament next year. Like, if you don't make the tournament and then you lose 2 games in a row like the Raptors did in the makeup games, there should be some way of, like, if you're the very bottom, hey, this tournament's 32 teams, but only 28 NBA teams get in. And, like, I don't know how much players would care about that year to year, but, like, there would be incentive because there's TV revenue there. There's obviously bragging rights. You know, you have to make up the games and stuff somehow. But I really do think, like with how competitive players are, the like scarlet letter of being relegated would like stick for people.
I think it'd be awesome. And then it's like, let's say Toronto and Charlotte were the 2 teams that got relegated. During those 2 weeks, they have to play each other like 4 times.
And this is like, it only punishes the fans.
But between the lines, Raps Hornets once again. It is now a pick'em. Vegas has given up.
No,
I think that's
I like
great.
this idea.
My big push is like, I know they pooled the teams this year based on previous year's records. Just go to divisions, man. Like we should be fighting Boston, New York, Philadelphia every year. Like that's why these games should matter.
I like that too.
Yeah, it also like divisions don't really matter that much anymore. So it does put a little emphasis back on the league's response to that. They've been asked about that was like, it's too hard to control how imbalanced the divisions are year to year. Where like the Raptors, like the Atlantic is a really tough in-season tournament pool then, and you already have to play those teams more. So I think the league would be worried like if a division ends up loaded, it like you get like double punished.
And I wonder if that makes the other scheduling easier because you have to schedule games against those teams.
That part is definitely accurate.
Yeah. So, anyways, I would like to see that because at the end of the day, it's still like you're playing against Orlando. Like it's not, there's no rivalry there where you do have history with the divisions. Anyways,
I think there's rivalry there. The Magic are taking your strategy and doing it correctly.
Anyway,
that's rival for me.
Shouts to Adam Silver for this because the in-season tournament was great content.
Okay,
it was great content to go to. Adam Silver is a genius.
You know, the only thing I would say is they just can't only play the LL Cool J song. The mom was, it was just like
what
every
about
other
What
second.
about Neil?
Next year, Let Me
Neil
Clear My Throat is just the song every game.
Neil killed it with the anthem, man. Great suit as well, or great jacket. But anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. Please rate and review the show. Thanks once again to Michael Grange, Fred Katz, producer and co-host, Alex Wong, Blake Murphy, our board producer, Deborah Nail, Jennifer Rolnick, David Sis, Jeremy Attitide, helping behind the scenes. We'll talk to you tomorrow.